My story begins on a sweltering August night, in a place I will never set eyes upon. The room takes life only in my imaginings. It is large most days when I conjure it. The walls are white and clean, the bed linens crisp as a fallen leaf. The private suite has the very finest of everything. Outside, the breeze is weary, and the cicadas throb in the tall trees, their verdant hiding places just below the window frames. The screens sway inward as the attic fan rattles overhead, pulling at wet air that has no desire to be moved. The scent of pine wafts in, and the woman's screams press out as the nurses hold her fast to the bed. Sweat pools on her skin and rushes down her face and arms and legs. She'd be horrified if she were aware of this. She is pretty, a gentle, fragile soul, not the sort who would intentionally bring about the catastrophic unraveling that is only, this moment, beginning. In my multifold years of life, I have learned that most people get along as best they can. They don't intend to hurt anyone. It is merely a terrible byproduct of surviving. It isn't her fault, all that comes to pass after that one final, merciless push. She produces the very last thing she could possibly want. Silent flesh comes forth, a tiny, fair-haired girl as pretty as a doll, yet blue and still. The woman has no way of knowing her child's fate, or if she does know, the medications will cause the memory of it to be nothing but a blur by. Tomorrow. She ceases her thrashing and surrenders to the twilight sleep, lulled by the doses of morphine and scopolamine administered to help her defeat the pain, to help her release everything, and she will. Sympathetic conversation takes place as doctors stitch and nurses clean up what is left. So sad when it happens this way. So out of order when a life has not even one breath in this world. You have to wonder sometimes, Hen, a child is so very wanted. A veil is lowered. Tiny eyes are shrouded. They will never see. The woman's ears hear but cannot grasp. All slips in and slips away. It is as if she is attempting to catch the tide, and it drains through her clenched fingers, and finally she floats out along with it. A man waits nearby, perhaps in the hallway just outside the door. He is stately, dignified, unaccustomed to being so helpless. He was to become a grandfather today. Glorious anticipation has melted into wrenching anguish. "Sir, I am so terribly sorry," the doctor says as he slips from the room. "Rest assured that everything humanly possible was done to ease your daughter's labor and to save the baby. I understand how very difficult this is. Please offer our condolences to the baby's father when you are finally able to reach him overseas. After so many disappointments, your family must have held such great hope. Will she be able to have more? It isn't advisable. This will be the end of her, and her mother as well when she learns of it. Christine is our only child, you know, the pitter-patter of little feet, the beginning of a new generation. I understand, sir. What are the risks should her life? And it's extremely unlikely that your daughter would ever carry another pregnancy to term. If she were to try, the results could be." I see. The doctor lays a comforting hand on the heartbroken man, or this is the way it happens in my imaginings. Their gazes tangle. The physician looks over his shoulder to be certain that the nurses cannot hear. "Sir, might I suggest something?" he says quietly, gravely. "I know of a woman in Memphis, Chapter 1, Avery Stafford, Aiken, South Carolina, present day." I take a breath, scoot to the edge of the seat, and straighten my jacket as the limo rolls to a stop on the boiling hot asphalt. News vans wait along the curb, accentuating the importance of this morning's seemingly innocuous meeting. But not one moment of this day will happen by accident. These past 2 months in South Carolina have been all about making sure the nuances are just right, shaping the inferences so as to hint but do no more. Definitive statements are not to be made. Not yet, anyway. Not for a long time, if I have my way about it. I wish I could forget why I've come home, but even the fact that my father isn't reading his notes or checking the briefing from Leslie, his uber-efficient press secretary, is an undeniable reminder. There's no escaping the enemy that rides silently in the car with us. It's here in the back seat, hiding beneath the gray tailored suit that hangs a hint too loose over my father's broad shoulders. Daddy stares out the window, his head leaning to one side. He has relegated his aides and Leslie to another car. You feeling all right? I reach across to brush a long blonde hair, mine, off the seat so it won't cling to his trousers when he gets out. If my mother were here, she'd whip out a mini lint brush, but she's home, preparing for our second event of the day, a family Christmas photo that must be taken months early just in case Daddy's prognosis worsens. He sits a bit straighter, lifts his head. Static makes his thick gray hair stick straight out. I want to smooth it down for him, but I don't. It would be a breach of protocol. If my mother is intimately involved in the micro aspects of our lives, such as fretting over lint and planning for the family Christmas photo in July, my father is the opposite. He is distant, an island of staunch maleness in a household of women. I know he cares deeply about my mother, my 2 sisters, and me, but he seldom voices the sentiment out loud. I also know that I'm his favorite, but the one who confuses him most. He is a product of an era when women went to college to secure the requisite Mrs. degree. He's not quite sure what to do with a 30-year-old daughter who graduated top of her class from Columbia Law and actually enjoys the gritty world of a U.S. attorney's office. Whatever the reason, perhaps just because the positions of perfectionist daughter and sweet daughter were already taken in our family, I have always been brainiac daughter. I loved school, and it was the unspoken conclusion that I would be the family torchbearer, the son replacement, the one to succeed my father. Somehow, I always imagined that I'd be older when it happened, and that I would be ready. Now I look at my dad and think, how can you not want it, Avery? This is what he's worked for all his life. What generations of Staffords have labored for since the Revolutionary War, for heaven's sake. Our family has always held fast to the guiding rope of public service. Daddy is no exception. Since graduating from West Point and serving as an Army aviator before I was born, he has upheld the family name with dignity and determination. Of course you want this, I tell myself. You've always wanted this. You just didn't expect it to happen yet, and not this way. That's all. Secretly, I'm clinging by all 10 fingernails to the best-case scenario. The enemies will be vanquished on both fronts, political and medical. My father will be cured by the combination of the surgery that brought him home from the summer congressional session early, and the chemo pump he must wear strapped to his leg every 3 weeks. My move home to Aiken will be temporary. Cancer will no longer be a part of our lives. It can be beaten. Other people have done it, and if anyone can, Senator, well, Stafford can. There is not anywhere a stronger man or better man than my dad. Ready? He asks, straightening his suit. It's a relief when he swipes down the rooster tail in his hair. I'm not prepared to cross the line from daughter to caretaker. Right behind you. I'd do anything for him, but I hope it's many more years before we're forced to reverse the roles of parent and child. I've learned how hard that is while watching my father struggle to make decisions for his mother. My once quick-witted, fun-loving Grandma Judy is now a ghost of her former self. As painful as that is, Daddy can't talk to anyone about it. If the media gets clued into the fact that we've moved her to a facility, especially an upscale one on a lovely estate not 10 miles from here, it'll be a lose-lose situation, politically speaking. Given the burgeoning scandal over a series of wrongful death and abuse cases involving corporate-owned elder care facilities in our state, Daddy's political enemies would either point out that only those with money can afford premium care, or they'd accuse my father of warehousing his mom because he is a cold-hearted lout who cares nothing for the elderly. They'd say that he'll happily turn a blind eye toward the needs of the helpless if it profits his friends and campaign contributors. The reality is that his decisions for Grandma Judy are in no way political. We're just like other families. Every available avenue is paved with guilt, lined with pain, and pockmarked with shame. We're embarrassed for Grandma Judy. We're afraid for her. We're heartsick about where this cruel descent into dementia might end. Before we moved her to the nursing home, my grandmother escaped from her caretaker and her household staff. She called a cab and vanished for an entire day, only to finally be found wandering at a business complex that was once her favorite shopping mall. How she managed this when she can't remember our names is a mystery. I'm wearing one of her favorite pieces of jewelry this morning. I'm dimly aware of it on my wrist as I slide out the limo door. I pretend I've selected the dragonfly bracelet in her honor, but really it's there as a silent reminder that Stafford women do what must be done, even when they don't want to. The location of this morning's event makes me uncomfortable. I've never liked nursing homes. It's just a meet and greet, I tell myself. The press is here to cover the event, not to ask questions. We'll shake hands, tour the building, join the residents for the birthday celebration of a woman who is turning 100. Her husband is 99, quite a feat. Inside, the corridor smells as if someone has turned my sister's triplets loose with cans of spray sanitizer. The scent of artificial jasmine fills the air. Leslie sniffs, then offers a nod of approval as she, a photographer, and several interns and aides flank us. We're without bodyguards for this appearance. No doubt they've gone ahead to prepare for this afternoon's town hall forum. Over the years, my father has received death threats from fringe groups and Minutemen militias, as well as any number of crackpots, claiming to be snipers, bioterrorists, and kidnappers. He seldom takes these threats seriously, but his security people do. Turning the corner, we're greeted by the nursing home director and 2 news crews with cameras. We tour, they film. My father amps up the charm. He shakes hands, poses for photos, takes time to talk with people, bend close to wheelchairs, and thank nurses for the difficult and demanding job they pour themselves into each day. I follow along and do the same. A debonair, elderly gentleman in a tweed bowler hat flirts with me. In a delightful British accent, he tells me I have beautiful blue eyes. If it were 50 years ago, I'd charm you into saying yes to a date, he teases. I think you already have, I answer, and we laugh together. One of the nurses warns me that Mr. McMorris is a silver-haired Don. Juan. He winks at the nurse just to prove it. As we wander down the hall to the party for the 100th birthday, I realize that I am actually having fun. The people here seem content. This isn't as luxurious as Grandma Judy's nursing home, but it's a far cry from the undermanaged facilities named by plaintiffs in the recent string of lawsuits. Odds are, none of those plaintiffs will ever see a dime, no matter what kind of damages they're awarded by the courts. The money men behind the nursing home chains use networks of holding companies and shell corporations they can easily send into bankruptcy to avoid paying claims. Which is why the uncovering of ties between one of these chains and one of my father's oldest friends and biggest contributors has been so potentially devastating. My father is a high-profile face upon which public anger and political finger-pointing can be focused. Anger and blame are powerful weapons. The opposition knows that. In the common room, a small podium has been set up. I take a spot off to the side with the entourage, positioned by the glass doors that look out onto a shady garden where a kaleidoscope of flowers blooms despite the beastly summer heat. A woman stands alone on one of the sheltered garden paths. Facing in the other direction, she's seemingly unaware of the party as she gazes into the distance. Her hands rest on a cane. She wears a simple cream-colored cotton dress and a white sweater despite the warm day. Her thick gray hair is braided and twisted around her head, and that, combined with the colorless dress, makes her seem almost ghost-like, a remnant of some long-forgotten past. A breeze rustles the wisteria trellis but doesn't seem to touch her, adding to the illusion that she isn't really there. I turn my attention to the nursing home director. She welcomes everyone, touts the reason for today's gathering. A full century of life is not achieved every day of the week, after all. To be married most of that time and still have your beloved by your side is even more remarkable. It is indeed an event worthy of a senatorial visit. Not to mention the fact that this couple has been among my father's supporters since his days in South Carolina's state government. Technically, they've known him longer than I have, and they're almost as devoted. Our Honoree and her husband hold their thin hands high in the air and clap furiously when my father's name is mentioned. The director tells the story of the sweet-looking lovers perched at the center table. Lucy was born in France when horse-drawn carriages still roamed the streets. It's hard to even imagine. She worked with the French resistance in the Second World War. Her husband, Frank, a fighter pilot, was shot down in combat. Their story is like something from a film, a sweeping romance. Part of an escape chain, Lucy helped to disguise him and smuggle him out of the country injured. After the war, he went back to find her. She was still living on the same farm with her family, holed up in a cellar, the only part of the house that remained. The events these two have weathered make me marvel. This is what's possible when love is real and strong, when people are devoted to one another, when they'll sacrifice anything to be together. This is what I want for myself, but I sometimes wonder if it's possible for our modern generation. We're so distracted, so busy. Glancing down at my engagement ring, I think Elliot and I have what it takes. We know each other so well. We've always been side by side. The birthday girl slowly pushes herself out of her chair, taking her beau's arm. They move along together, stooped and crooked and leaning. The sight is sweet and heart-tugging. I hope my parents live to this ripe old stage of life. I hope they'll have a long retirement. Someday. Years. In the future, when my father finally decides to slow down. This disease can't take him at 57. He's too young. He's too desperately needed, both at home and in the world. He has work to do yet, and after that, my parents deserve a retirement with quietly passing seasons and time to spend together. A tender feeling settles in my chest, and I push away these thoughts. No overwhelming displays of emotion in public. Leslie's frequent reminder. Women can't afford it in this arena. It's seen as incompetence, weakness. As if I didn't know that already. A courtroom isn't much different. Female lawyers are always on trial in more ways than one. We have to play by different rules. My father salutes Frank as they meet near the podium. The man stops, straightens, and returns the gesture with military precision. Their gazes meet, and the moment is pure. It may look perfect on camera, but it's not for the camera. My father's lips press into a tight line. He's trying not to. Tear up. It isn't like him to come so close to letting it show. I swallow another swell of emotion. A breath shudders past my lips. I press my shoulders back, turn my eyes away, and focus on the window, studying the woman in the garden. She's still standing there, gazing off. Who is she? What is she looking for? The boisterous chorus of "Happy Birthday" seeps through the glass and causes her to slowly turn toward the building. I feel the tug of the song. I know that the cameras are likely to sweep my way, and I'll look distracted. But I can't quite extricate myself from staring at the path outside. I want to see the woman's face at least. Will it be as blank as the summer sky? Is she merely addled and wandering, or has she skipped the festivities on purpose? Leslie yanks my jacket from behind, and I snap to attention like a schoolgirl caught talking in line. "Happy birth, focus," she sings close to my ear, and I nod as she moves off to gain a better angle for snapping cell phone photos that will go on my father's Instagram. The senator is up on all the latest social media, even though he doesn't know how to use any of it. His social media manager is a whiz. The ceremony continues. Camera flashes erupt. Happy family members wipe tears and take videos as my father presents a framed congratulatory letter. The cake is wheeled up, 100 candles blazing. Leslie is delighted. Happiness and emotion swell the room, stretching it. Like a helium balloon, any more joy and we'll all float away. Someone touches my hand and wrist, fingers encircling me so unexpectedly that I jerk away, then stop myself so as not to cause a scene. The grip is cold and bony and trembling, but surprisingly strong. I turn to see the woman from the garden. She straightens her humped back and gazes up at me through eyes the color of the hydrangeas back home at Drayton Hill, a soft, clear blue with a lighter mist around the edges. Her pleated lips tremble. Before I can gather my wits, a nurse comes to collect her, taking a firm hold. "May," she says, casting an apologetic look my way. "Come along. You're not supposed to bother our guests." Rather than releasing my wrist, the old woman clings to it. She seems desperate, as if she needs something, but I can't imagine what it is. She searches my face, stretches upward. "Fern?" she whispers. Chapter 2, May Crandall, Aiken, South Carolina, present day. On occasion, it is as if the latches in my mind have gone rusty and worn. The doors fall open and closed at will. A peek inside here, an empty space there. A dark place I'm afraid to peer into. I never know what I will find. There's no predicting when a barrier will swing wide or why. Triggers. That's what the psychologists call them on TV shows. Triggers.s. If the strike ignites gunpowder and sends a projectile spinning down a rifle barrel. It's an appropriate metaphor. Her face triggers something. A door opens far into the past. I stumble through it unwittingly at first, wondering what might be locked inside this room. As soon as I call her Fern, I know it's not Fern I'm thinking of. I've gone even further back. It's Queenie I see. Queenie, our strong mama, who marked all of us with her lovely golden curls. All but poor Camellia. My mind skitters featherlight across treetops and along valley floors. I travel all the way to a low-slung Mississippi riverbank to the last time I saw Queenie. The warm, soft air of that Memphis summer night swirls over me. But the night is an imposter. It is not soft. It does not forgive. From this night, there will be no returning. 12 years old, still thin and knobby as a front porch post, I dangle my legs under the rail of our shanty boat, watching for a gator's eyes to catch. The amber flicker of lantern light. Gators shouldn't stray this far upwater on the Mississippi, but there's been gossip about sightings around here lately. This makes looking for them a game of sorts. Shanty boat kids take their entertainment where they can find it. Right now, we need a distraction worse than usual. Beside me, Fern climbs the rail and searches the woods for fireflies. At nearly 4 years old, she's learning to count them. She points a stubby finger and leans out, mindless of gators. "I seen one, Rill. I seen 'im," she cries. I grab her dress to pull her back. "You go fallin' off, I ain't jumping in. After ya, this time." Truth told, it probably wouldn't hurt her if she tumped over. It'd teach her a lesson. The boat's tied up in a nice little backwater across the river from Mud Island. The water is only hip-deep on me off the Arcadia's stern. Fern could touch the bottom on her tiptoes, but all 5 of us swim like pollywogs anyhow, even little Gabion, who can't talk a full sentence yet. When you're born on the river, you take to it as natural as drawing breath. You know its sounds and its ways and its critters. For river rats like us, the water's a home place. A safe place. But something's in the air just now. Something. That's not right. A spat of goose flesh runs up my arms and needles my cheeks. There's always been a knowing in me. I'd never tell a living soul of it, but it's there just the same. A chill settles through me in the airless summer night. Overhead, the sky is thick, and the clouds are ripe as melons fair to bursting. There's a storm. Coming, but what I feel is something more than that. Inside the shanty, Queenie's soft groans come faster now, mindless of the midwife woman's molasses-thick voice. "Now, Ms. Foss, you gots to stop pushin', and you gots to stop now. This 'ere child come out wrong-sided, he. Ain't gon' be long for this world, and you ain't neither. That's it now. You. Just quietin' down. Be easy." Queenie gives a low, wrenching sound that's like a boot sucking out of thick bayou mud. She's birthed the 5 of us with hardly more than a heavy breath, but it's taking so much longer this time. I rub the sweaty chill off my arms and feel like something's out there in the woods. Something evil. It looks our way. Why is it here? Did it come for Queenie? I want to scamper down the gangplank and run along the shore and yell, "You get on now. You get away. You can't have my mama." I'd do it. I'm not afraid there might be gators. But instead, I sit still as a killdeer bird on a nest. I listen to the midwife's words. She's loud enough, I might as well be in the shanty. "Oh, lands. Oh, mercy. She got more'n one inside. She do." My daddy mutters something I can't hear. His boot steps cross the floor. Hesitate. Cross again. The midwife says, "Mr. Foss, ain't nothin' I can do 'bout this. You don't get this woman to a doctor quick, them babies ain't gon' set eyes on. This world. And this be their mama's dyin' day too." Briney doesn't answer right off. He pounds both fists hard against the wall so that Queenie's picture frames rattle. Something slips loose, and there's the clink of metal against wood, and I know what it is by where it falls and how it sounds. In my mind, I see the tin cross with the sad-looking man on top, and I want to run inside and grab it and kneel by the bed and whisper mysterious Polish words. The way Queenie does on stormy nights when Bryony is away from the shanty boat and the rainwater flows over the roof. And waves pound the hull. But I don't know the strange, sharp language Queenie learned from the family she left behind when she ran off to the river with Bryony. The few Polish words I have would be a mouthful of nonsense if I strung them together. Even so, if I could grab Queenie's cross in my hand just now, I'd say them to the Tin Man Queenie kisses when the storms come. I'd try pretty near anything to help get the birthing over with and see Queenie smile again. On the other side of the door, Bryony's boot scrapes the planks, and I hear the cross clatter over the floor. Bryony looks out the cloudy window that came from the farmhouse he tore down to build the boat before I was ever born. With Bryony's mama on her deathbed and the crops droughted out for another year, the banker was going to get the house anyway. Bryony figured the river was the place to be. He was right, too. Time the Depression hit, him and Queenie were living just fine on the water. Even the Depression can't starve the river, he says every time he tells the story. The river's got her own magic. She takes care of her people. Always will. But tonight that magic's gone bad. Mista, you hear me talking at you? The midwife turns me now. I ain't having they blood on my hands. You get yo woman to the hospital. You do it now. Behind the glass, Bryony's face pulls tight. His eyes squeeze shut. He hammers a fist to his forehead, lets it fall against the wall. The storm. I don't care if the devil hisself is dancing by, Mr. Foss. Ain't nothing I can do for this gal. Nothing. I ain't gonna have it on my hands, no, suh. She's never trouble with the others. Queenie screams high and loud, the sound whirling off into the night like a wildcat's call. Lesson you forgot to tell me something. She ain't never had two babies. At once before neither. I shift to my feet and take Fern around and put her on the shanty porch with Gabby on, who's 2, and Lark, who's 6. Camellia looks my way from where she's staring in the front window. Closing the gate across the gangplank, I trap them all on the porch and tell Camellia not to let the little kids climb over. Camellia answers with a frown. At 10 years old, she's got Bryony's muley streak along with his dark hair and eyes. She doesn't like being told what to do. She's stubborn as a cypress stump and twice as thick sometimes. If the little ones go to fussing, we'll be in a bigger fix than we already are. It's gonna be all right, I promise, and pat their soft golden heads like they're puppies. Queenie's just having a hard time is all. She don't need nobody bothering her. Y'all stay put now. Old Rougarou, he's rootin' round. Tonight, I heard him breathin' minute ago. Ain't safe to be out. Now that. I'm 12. I don't believe in the Rougarou and the Bugger Man and Mad Captain Jack of the River Pirates. Not much, anyhow. I doubt if Camellia ever did swallow Bryony's wild tales. She reaches for the door latch. Don't, I hiss. I'll go. We were told to keep out, which Bryony never says unless he means it. But right now, Bryony sounds like he's got no idea what to do, and I'm worried about Queenie and my new baby brother or sister. We've been, all of us, waiting to see which one it'd be. It wasn't supposed to come yet, though. This is early, even earlier than Gabion, who was such a little thing. He came sliding into the world before Bryony could get the boat to shore and find a woman to help with the birthing. This new baby don't seem much inclined to make things so easy. Maybe it'll look like Camellia when it comes out and be just as stubborn. Babies, I remind myself, It sinks in that there's more than one, like puppies, and this ain't normal. 3 lives lay half hidden by the bed. Curtain Queenie sewed from pretty golden heart flower sacks. 3 bodies try to pull themselves apart from each other, but they can't. I open the door, and the midwife is on top of me before I can decide whether to go in or not. Her hand locks onto my arm. It feels like her fingers go around twice. I look down and see the circle of dark skin against pale. She could snap me in 2 if she'd a mind to. Why can't she save my baby brother or sister? Why can't she pull it from my mama's body and into this world? Queenie's hand grips the curtain, and she screams and tugs, arching up off the bed. A half-dozen wire hooks rip loose. I see my mama's face, her long corn silk blonde hair matted to her skin, her blue eyes, those beautiful soft blue eyes that have marked all of us but Camellia, bugging out. The skin on her cheek stretches so tight, it's crossed with lacy veins like a dragonfly's wings. "Daddy?" My whisper comes on the end of Queenie's scream, but still it seems to upset the air in the room. I don't ever call Bryony Daddy or Queenie Mama unless something's real wrong. They were so young when they had me. I don't think they even thought to teach me the words Mama and Daddy. It's always been like we were friends the same age, but every once in a while I need them to be a daddy or a mama. The last time was weeks ago when we saw the man hung in the tree, dead, his body bloated up. Will Queenie look like that if she dies? Will she go first and then the babies? Or will it be the other way around? My stomach squeezes so tight, I don't even feel that big hand around my arm anymore. Maybe I'm even glad it's there, holding me on my feet, keeping me anchored to the spot. I'm afraid to go any closer to Queenie. "You tell him." The midwife shakes me like a rag doll, and it hurts. Her teeth glare white in the lantern light. Thunder rumbles not far off, and a gust of wind hits the starboard wall, and the midwife stumbles forward, taking me with her. Queenie's eyes meet mine. She looks at me the way a little child would, like she thinks I can help her, and she's begging me to do it. I swallow hard and try to find my voice. Daddy?" I stutter out again, and he still stares straight ahead. He's froze up like a rabbit when it senses danger nearby. Through the window, I see Camellia with her face mashed to the glass. The little kids have climbed up on the bench to look in. Lark's got big tears rolling down her fat cheeks. She hates to see any living creature hurting. She throws all the bait fish back in the river if she can get away with it. Whenever Bryony shoots possums or ducks or squirrels or deer, she carries on like her best pal's been killed dead right there in front of her. She's looking at me to save Queenie. They all are. There's a spit of lightning someplace off in the distance. It pushes back the yellow coal oil glow, then goes dark. I try to count the seconds before I hear the thunder, so I'll know how far off the storm is, but I'm too rattled. If Bryony doesn't get Queenie to the doctor soon, it'll be too late. Like always, we're camped on the wild shore. Memphis is all the way on the other side of the wide, dark Mississippi River. I cough a lump out of my throat and stiffen up my neck so the lump won't come back. "Bryony, you gotta take her across water." Slowly, he swivels my way. His face is still glassy, but he looks like he's been waiting for this, for somebody besides the midwife to tell him what to do. "Bryony, you gotta carry her off in the skiff now before that storm comes in." It'd take too long to move the shanty boat, I know. Bryony would realize that too if he could think straight. "You tell him." The midwife eggs me on. She starts toward Bryony, shoving me ahead of her. "You don't get that woman off of this boat. This child's mama be dead before mornin'." Chapter 3. Avery Stafford. Aiken, South Carolina, present day. "Avery, we need you down here." Nothing takes you from 30 years old to 13 faster than your mother's voice rebounding up the stairs like a tennis ball after a forehand slice. "Coming, I'll be right there." Elliot chuckles on the other end of the phone. The sound is both familiar and comforting. It calls up a memory trail that stretches all the way back to childhood. Between Elliot's mother and mine giving us the hawk-eye, we never had a prayer of stepping out of line, much less getting away with the sorts of miscreant deeds other teenagers were guilty of. We were more or less doomed to be good, together. "Sounds like you're on, sweetheart. The family Christmas picture." Leaning toward the mirror, I brush blonde corkscrews away from my face, only to have them fall again. My quick walk down to the stable after returning from the nursing home event has brought out the Grandma Judy curls. I knew it would, but a broodmare foaled last night, and a new baby is more than I can resist. Now I'm paying the price. No hair straightener known to man is a match for the water-laden breeze off the Edisto River. Christmas pictures in July? Elliot coughs, and I'm reminded of how much I miss him. This business of living so far apart is hard, and we're just 2 months into it. She's worried about the chemo. They told her that Daddy wouldn't lose his hair with this kind, but she's afraid he will. There's really no doctor on the planet who can comfort my mother about Daddy's colon cancer. Diagnosis. Mama has always been in charge of the world, and she's determined not to abdicate now. If she says Daddy's hair will thin, it probably will. "Sounds like your mother." Elliot laughs again. He should know. His, mother, Bitsy, and mine are cut from 2 corners of the same cloth. She's just scared to death of losing Daddy. I choke a little on the last word. These past few months have rubbed us raw from the inside out, left. Each of us silently bleeding beneath our skins. Of course she is. Elliot pauses for what seems like an eternity. I hear computer keys clicking. I remind myself that he has a fledgling brokerage firm to run, and its success means everything to him. He doesn't need his fiancée calling in the middle of a workday for no particular reason. "It's good that you're there, Aves. I hope it's helping." Sometimes I think I'm adding to the stress rather than reducing it. "You need to be there. You need the year in South Carolina to reestablish your residency. U.S. case." Elliot reminds me of the same thing every time we have this conversation. Every time I'm fighting the urge to catch a flight to Maryland and return to my old digs at the United States Attorney's Office, where there was no need to worry about cancer treatments early. Christmas pictures, constituents, and people like that desperate-looking woman who grabbed my arm at the nursing home. "Hey, Aves, hang on a minute. Sorry, things are crazy here this morning." Elliot puts me on hold to answer another call, and my thoughts drift back to this morning. I see the woman, May, standing in the garden, wearing her white sweater. Then she's beside me, her face barely at the level of my shoulder, her bone-thin hands clenched over my wrist, the walking cane dangling from her arm. The look in her eyes is haunting even, in retrospect. There's such a sense of recognition there. She's certain she knows who I am. "Fern? I'm sorry?" "Fernie, it's me." Tears frame her eyes. "Oh dear, I've missed you so. They told me you were gone. I knew you'd never break our promise." For a second, I want to be Fern, just to make her happy, to give her a respite from standing by herself gazing into the wisteria. She seemed so very lonely out there, lost. I'm saved from having to tell her that I'm not the person she's looking for. The attendant intervenes, red-faced and clearly rattled. "I apologize," she whispers just to me. "Mrs. Crandall is new here." She wraps an arm firmly around Mrs. Crandall's shoulder and drags her hand from my wrist. The old woman is surprisingly strong. She surrenders inch by inch, and the nurse says quietly, "Come on, May. I'll take you back to your room." I watch her go, feeling as if I should do something to help, but I don't know what. Elliot comes back on the line and my mind snaps to the present again. "Anyway, stiff upper lip, you can handle it. I've seen you take on the big city defense attorneys. Aiken can't be too much of a problem." "I know," I sigh. "I'm sorry for bothering you. I just needed to hear your voice, I guess." A blush rushes up my neck. I'm not usually so dependent. Maybe it's a byproduct of Daddy's health crisis and Grandma Judy's issues, but a painful sense of mortality clings to me. It's thick and persistent like fog off the river. I can only feel my way through it, blind to whatever might be lurking. I've lived a charmed life. Maybe I never understood that until now. Don't be so hard on yourself. Elliot's voice turns tender. It's a lot to deal with. Give it some time. You can't solve anything by worrying ahead of yourself. You're right. I know you're right. Can I have that in writing? Elliot's joke pulls a laugh from me. Never. I grab my purse from the bureau, looking for something to tie back my hair. A dump out on the bed scores 2 silver bobby pins. Those will do. I'll pull back the front and do a wavy look for the picture. Grandma Judy will love it when she sees the photo. It's her hair I'm working with after all, and she always wore it curly. That's the way, Abe's. Elliot greets someone who's just entered his office. And we say a quick goodbye as I do my hair and give the mirror a final glance, straightening the green sheath dress I've pulled on for the photo. I hope my mother's stylist doesn't do a label check. The dress is a store brand from the mall. The hair actually looks decent though. Even the stylist will approve. She's here, and she probably is. She and Leslie are in agreement that I need a bit of work, as they put it. There's a knock at the door, just a little one. "Don't come in. I've got an octopus locked in the closet," I warn. My 10-year-old niece Courtney pokes her curly blonde head in the door. She's a throwback to Grandma Judy, too. "Last time you said there was a grizzly bear in there," she complains, rolling her eyes to let me know that, while this little joke may have been cute when she was 9, it's lame now. That she has officially reached the double digits. "A shape-shifting mutant grizzly bear? Thank you very much," I say, taking a poke at the video game she's way too obsessed with. With a set of surprise triplets occupying the household, Courtney is left to her own devices much of the time. She doesn't seem to mind the new freedom, but I worry about her. She puts a hand on her hip and gives me attitude. "If you don't get downstairs, you're gonna need that grizzly bear because Honeybee's gonna sick the dogs on you." Honeybee is my father's pet name for my mother. Ooh, now I'm scared. The Scottish Terriers here at Drayden Hill are so pampered they'd probably expect an intruder to come equipped with designer goodies from the dog bakery. I ruffle Courtney's hair and slip past her. "Allison!" I yell down the stairs and start running. "Your daughter is holding up the family picture." Courtney squeals, and we race to the lower landing. She wins because she's an agile little thing and I'm wearing heels. I don't need the extra height. But Mother will not be happy if I show up for the Christmas photo in flats. In the formal receiving room, the staff and the photographer are on a mission. Christmas photo mania ensues. By the time we're done with the shoot, My eldest sister's teenagers are exasperated, and I'm ready for a nap. Instead, I grab a toddler and start a tickle war on the sofa. The others quickly join in. "Avery, for heaven's sake!" my mother protests. "You're making a wreck of yourself, and you're supposed to leave with your father in 20 minutes. Leslie cocks an eye my way, showing her iguana-like ability to focus in 2 directions at once. She wags a finger at the green dress. "That's too formal for the town hall forum, and this morning's outfit isn't formal enough. Wear the blue pantsuit with the cording around the bottom. Very senatorial but not overstated. You know the one I mean?" Yes. I'd rather wrestle with the triplets or talk to Missy's kids about their plans to be junior counselors at summer camp, but nobody's offering me those options. I kiss my nieces and nephews goodbye and hurry upstairs to change. In short order, I'm sharing another limo ride with my father. He pulls out his cell phone and scrolls to the recorded brief for this afternoon's events. Between Leslie, numerous aides and interns, the staff here and in DC, and the newspapers, the man is always well informed. He needs to be. In the current political climate, there's a very real danger of a change in the senatorial balance should his bout with cancer force him to step down. Daddy would go to his deathbed before he'd let that happen. The length of time he ignored his symptoms and remained in DC for the congressional session is proof. As is the fact that I have been called home for grooming and re-establishment of residency, as Elliot put it, just in case. In South Carolina, the Stafford name has always trumped political dividing lines. But the publicity about the nursing home scandal has everyone sweating like tourists on a Charleston summer afternoon. Theirs. A new story breaking every week. Residents who've died after bed sores were left untreated. Care facilities with unlicensed staff. Places that were far from complying with the federal regulations requiring at least 1.3 hours of care per day for each patient, yet we're still allowed to bill Medicare and Medicaid. Devastated families who believed that their loved ones were in competent hands. It's heartbreaking and horrible, and the slim connection too. My father has provided his political enemies with endless emotionally charged ammunition. They want everyone to believe that if the pockets were deep enough, my father would use his influence to help a friend profit from human suffering and escape prosecution for it. Anyone who knows my father knows better. He isn't in a position to insist that supporters and campaign contributors offer up their balance sheets, and even if he were, the truth would be hidden beneath layer upon layer of corporate entities that look fine at a glance. "Better brush up," Dad says, and hits play on the voice memo. He holds the phone between us and leans my way, and suddenly I'm 7 years old again. I get the gushy, warm feeling I always had when Mom walked me through the hallowed halls of the Capitol, stopped outside my father's door, and allowed me to go in alone. Very quietly, with great gravity, I'd march to the secretary's desk and announce that I had an appointment with the senator. "Oh, well, let me confirm that," Mrs. Dennison would say each time, lifting an eyebrow and restraining a smile as she picked up the intercom. "Senator, I have a Miss Stafford here to see you. Shall I send her in?" After I'd successfully been admitted, my father would greet me with a handshake frown and say, "Good morning, Miss Stafford. Wonderful of you to come. Are you prepared to go out and greet the public today?" "Yes, sir, I am." His eyes always twinkled with pride as I twirled to display that I had dressed for the occasion. One of the best things a father can do for his daughter is let her know that she has met his expectations. My father did that for me, and no amount of effort on my part can fully repay the debt. I'd do anything for him and for my mother. Now we sit shoulder to shoulder, listening to the details of the day's remaining activities, the topics that should be covered, and the issues that must be avoided. We're given carefully spun answers to questions about care facility abuse and foiled lawsuits and shell corporations that magically go bankrupt before damages can be paid out. What does my father intend to do about this? Has he been leaning on people, shielding political contributors and old friends from the long arm of justice? Will he now use his office to help the thousands of older adults who struggle to find quality care? What about those still living in their own homes, dealing with damage from the recent historic flooding, forced to choose between taking care of repairs, eating, paying the electric bill, and refilling medications? What does my father think should be done to help them? The questions go on and on. Each comes with at least one well-scripted response. Many have several options we can use depending on the context, plus possible rebuttals. This afternoon's town hall forum will be a carefully regulated press op, but there's always the remote possibility of a mole sneaking to the microphone. Things could get heated. We're even told how to respond should someone manage to dig up the issue of Grandma Judy. Why are we paying for a facility that costs over 7 times the per-day amount that low-income seniors are allotted by? Medicaid? Why? Because Grandma Judy's doctor recommended Magnolia Manor as our best option, given my grandmother's familiarity with the place. One of her childhood friends lived on the estate before it was converted, and so it's like going home for her. We want her to have whatever will comfort her, but we're also concerned for her safety. We, like many families, find ourselves confronted with a complex and difficult issue for which there is no simple answer. Complex and difficult issue. Simple answer. I commit those lines to memory verbatim in case I'm asked. I'll be better off not trying to ad-lib when such deeply personal issues are involved. Good op at the nursing home this morning, Wells, Leslie comments when she slips into the car during a coffee stop a few blocks from the venue. We're on our way to nipping this thing in the bud. She's even more intense than usual. Let Cal Fortner and his team try to make mileage off this business about senior care. They're only putting out the rope we'll hang them with. They're putting out plenty of rope. Dad's joke falls flat. There's a well-thought-out attack plan in the opposition's camp, a systematic strategy of painting my father as an out-of-touch elitist, a Washington insider whose decades in D.C. have left him blind to the needs of the people in his home state. More for us to work with, Leslie answers confidently. Listen, slight change of plans. We'll be coming into the building from the back. There's a protest underway across the street from the entrance. She shifts focus to me then. Avery, we'll bring you on stage for this one. We're doing the forum with the senator seated across from the host for a casual feel. You will be beside your father on the sofa, to his right, the concerned daughter having moved home to look after his health and manage the family's business concerns. You're the one who's single and not busy raising children. You have a wedding to plan here in Aiken, etc., etc. You know the drill. Nothing too political, but don't be afraid to show your knowledge of the issues and the legal ramifications. We're looking for a relaxed, unscripted tone, so the opportunity may arise to filter a question of a more personal nature your way. Only local news outlets will be present, which makes this a perfect chance for you to gain a little face time without too much pressure. Of course, I've spent the last 5 years with juries scrutinizing my every move and defense lawyers breathing down my neck. Participants in a carefully monitored town hall meeting do not scare me. Or so I tell myself. For some reason, my pulse is racing and my throat feels rough and dry. Game face, kiddo. Daddy sends me what we sometimes call the $1,000,000 wink. It oozes confidence like warm honey, thick and irresistible. If only I had half of my father's charisma. Leslie moves on with the briefing for the event. She's still talking when we arrive at the hall. Unlike the nursing home appearance earlier, there's security this time, including local DPS officers. I can hear the commotion. Out front, and a squad car sits at the end of the alleyway. Leslie looks like she's ready to punch someone's lights out as we're hustled from the limo. A nervous sweat beads under my conservative navy suit. Honor thy father and mother. A protester shouts above the din. I want to hang a right turn, march to the curb, and tell these people off. How dare they? No concentration camps for seniors. That one follows us through the door. What are these people, nuts? I mutter, and Leslie gives me a warning look, then shrugs covertly toward the police officers. I'm being told to keep my opinions to myself in public, unless they're pre-approved. But now I'm fighting mad, which may be a good thing. My pulse slows resolutely, and I feel my game face settling into place. The minute the door closes, things calm down. We're met by Andrew Moore, the program coordinator for the hosts of today's forum, a seniors' rights pack. Andrew seems surprisingly young to be in such a position. He can't be past his mid-20s. The neatly pressed gray suit combined with slightly askew necktie and haphazardly bunched shirt collar make him seem like a boy whose clothes were laid out for him in the morning, but who had to get into them himself. He tells us that he was raised by his grandparents, who made huge sacrifices to provide for him. This is his way of giving back. When someone mentions that I was a federal prosecutor, he eyes me and quips that the pack could use a good attorney on staff. I'll keep that in mind, I joke. We make a bit more small talk while we wait. He seems likable, honest, energetic, and committed. My confidence that this will be a fair discussion of the issues ratchets upward. Other introductions quickly take place. We meet the local reporter who will act as our moderator. We slide microphones under our jackets, clip them to our lapels, and hook the transmitter boxes over our waistbands. We wait in the wings while the host takes the stage, thanks the organizers, then reminds everyone of the format for today's forum before finally introducing us. The crowd applauds, and we ascend the stage, waving cheerfully at the audience. Everyone is well behaved, though looking out at the group, I see quite a few faces that seem concerned, skeptical, and somewhat unfriendly. Others eye the senator with what could only be classified as hero worship. My father does a reasonable job of responding to the simple questions and deflecting a few inquiries that can't be answered in a soundbite. There are no easy solutions to the problem of funding retirement years that last much longer than in previous generations, or the issue of fractured families, and the cultural shift toward relying on professional care rather than tending to senior relatives at home. Despite the well-thought-out replies, I can tell that he's a little off the mark today. He's a bit. Young man asks, "Sir, I'd like to hear your response to Cal Fortner's accusation that the goal of corporate-owned senior care chains is to warehouse the elderly in the cheapest way possible so as to increase profits, and that your repeated acceptance of campaign contributions from L.R. Lawton and his investment partners indicates your support of this profits over people model. Do you acknowledge that in these facilities, seniors were tended to by minimum wage workers with little or no training, if they were seen to at all? Your opponent calls for federal legislation to hold anyone who profits from a care facility or its holding companies personally accountable for the care provided there, as well as any damages awarded in lawsuits. Fortner is also calling for taxes on wealthy individuals, such as yourself, to fund an increase in benefits for our poorest senior citizens. In view of recent events, would you support this in the Senate, and why or why not? I can almost hear Leslie gnashing her teeth behind the curtain. Those questions weren't anywhere in the script, and no doubt they're not on the index card the guy is holding. My father hesitates, appearing to be momentarily bewildered. Come on, I think. Sweat drips down my back. My muscles tense, and I clutch the armrest of my chair to keep from fidgeting. The silence is agonizing. Minutes seem to pass, but I know it's not that long. My father finally launches into a lengthy explanation of the existing federal regulations on nursing homes and the taxes and federal trust funds that pay for Medicaid. He seems competent and unruffled, once again in charge. He makes it evident that he is not in a position to single-handedly alter Medicaid funding, the tax code, and the current state of senior care, but that these issues will have his foremost attention in the next Senate session. The forum then returns to a more acceptable script. A question eventually comes my way, and the host looks at me indulgently. I give the prescribed response about whether or not I am being groomed for my father's Senate seat. I don't say yes, and I don't say never in a million years. Instead, I end with, in any case, it's premature to even think about it, unless I want to run against the man himself. And who would be crazy enough to do that? The audience chuckles, and I follow up with the signature wink I inherited from my dad. He's so pleased, he looks 10 feet tall as he responds to a few more simple questions, and the discussion wraps up. I'm ready for pats on the back from Leslie as we exit the stage. Instead, she catches me with a worried look and leans close as we walk out the door. The nursing home called. Apparently you lost a bracelet there? What? A bracelet? Suddenly, I remember putting one on this morning. There's no movement on my wrist, and yes, the bracelet is gone. One of the residents was found with it. The director looked at her cell phone photos from the event and determined that it was yours. The woman in the nursing home, the one who grabbed my hand. Now I remember the tiny gold legs of 3 little dragonflies raking down my wrist as May Crandall was pulled away. She must have ended up with my jewelry. Oh, I know what happened. The director apologized profusely. The patient is new and struggling to adjust. She was found 2 weeks ago in a house along the river with her dead sister's body and a dozen cats. Oh, how horrible. My mind takes flight and I see the dismal, gruesome scene, even though I don't want to. I'm sure it was an accident, the thing about the bracelet, I mean. She grabbed my hand while we were listening to Daddy. The nurse sort of had to peel her off. That shouldn't have happened. It's okay, Leslie. It's fine. I'll send someone to pick it up. I remember May Crandall's blue eyes, the way she regarded me with such desperation. I imagine her coming away with my bracelet, examining it alone in her room, draping it over her wrist, and admiring it with delight. If it weren't an heirloom, I'd just let her keep it. You know what? I think I'll go back and get it myself. The bracelet was my grandmother's. The day's agenda calls for my father and me to part ways from here. He'll be spending a little time at his office before having supper with one of his constituents, while my mother hosts a DAR meeting at Drayden Hill. Is there someone who can drive me, or can I take one of the cars? Leslie's eyes flare. I'm afraid we're about to lock horns, so I add a more compelling excuse. I should run by and have tea with Grandma Judy while I've got a little time anyway. She'll enjoy seeing the bracelet. The town hall forum has left me feeling guilty that I haven't visited my grandmother in almost a week. Leslie's jaw twitches as she acquiesces, making it clear that she finds my silly whim disturbingly unprofessional. I can't help it. I'm still thinking about May Crandall and remembering the plethora of newspaper stories about nursing home abuse. Perhaps I just want to make sure that May didn't come to me because she's in some sort of trouble. Perhaps my curiosity has been piqued by her sad, macabre story. She was found 2 weeks ago in a house along the river with her dead sister's body. Was her sister's name Fern? Chapter 4. Rill Foss, Memphis, Tennessee, 1939. Queenie is as pale as skimmed milk, her body tight and hard as briny lays. Her on the edge of the shanty porch and goes after the skiff, which is tied up to a drift pile down water. Queenie cries and screams, out of her head, her cheek pushed to the smooth, wet wood. Lark backs herself into the night shadows by the shanty wall, but the little ones, Fern and Gabion, sidle closer on hands and knees. They've never seen a grown person act this way. Gabion leans down to see, like he's not sure this thing in Queenie's pink flowered dress is even her. Queenie is light and laughter, and all the old songs she sings with us as we travel along from one river town to another. This woman with the bared teeth and the cuss words and the moans and sobs can't be her, but it is. Woo, woo, Gabion says, because at just 2, he can't say my name, Rill. He grabs my skirt hem, tugging it as I kneel down to hold Queenie's head. Queenie, ow! Hush up! Camellia slaps at the little kid's hands as Fern stretches to stroke Queenie's long gold curls. It's the hair that first caught Briny's eye and made him set his sights on her. Don't your mama look like a princess in a storybook? He asks me sometimes. Queen of Kingdom Arcadia, that's. Your mama. That makes you a princess sure enough, don't it? But my mama's not beautiful now, not with her face sweat-streaked and her mouth twisted in pain. The babies are busting her open. Her stomach clenches and bulges under the dress. She grabs hold of me and hangs on. And inside the cabin, the midwife wipes her hands, gathering her birthing. Tools in a grass basket. You gotta help her, I scream. She's dying, ain't having nothing else to do with this business, the woman says, her heavy body rocking the boat and making the lantern sway and sputter. No. Mo. Fool. River trash. She's mad as a Camptown dog because Bryny wouldn't pay her cash. Money. Bryny says she promised to deliver a baby, which she didn't. And she ought to be glad he's letting her take the 2 fat catfish he pulled off the trot lines earlier in the day, plus some coal oil for her carry lamp. She'd get back at us if she could, but she's still blacker than tar, and we're white. And she knows what could happen if she gives us trouble. The catfish was supposed to be our dinner, which leaves us with nothing but one little cake of corn pone between the 5 of us. That spins through my mind with a half-dozen other things. Should I gather up clothes for Queenie? The hairbrush? Her shoes? Has Bryny got enough money to pay a real doctor? What'll happen if he don't? What if the law nabs him? Once before, when we were hustling pool halls in river towns, he got snagged. Bryny's a good hustler. There's nobody can beat him at a game of 8-ball, and he can play a pool hall piano good enough that people will pay him to do it, but this depression has made cash hard to come by. Mostly now he hustles pool and plays for things he can, trade off to get what we need. Is there money hid somewhere? Should I ask Bryny when he comes back? Remind him he might need it? How will he make the trip across river in the dark with the storm already? Lifting whitecaps on the water? The midwife turns sideways to get out the door, her basket slapping her behind. Something red hangs out the top, and I know what it is. Even in the dim light, Queenie's pretty velvet hat with the feathers on top, the one. Bryony won in a pool game in a dirty little place called Boggyfield. "You put that back," I say. "That's my mama's." The woman's dark eyes fold up in her face, and she wags her chin at me. "Done been here all day long, and I ain't gonna be taking no two fish." I gots me enough fish. I take this hat. She looks around to see where Bryony's at, and then she starts for the gangplank at the side of the porch. I want to stop her, but I can't. On my lap, Queenie screams, thrashing around. Her head lands on the deck with a hollow thud, like a watermelon. Grab her with both hands. Camellia hurries ahead of the woman and stretches herself across the gate, her thin arms stretched from rail to rail. "You ain't taking my mama's hat nowheres." The woman moves another step, but if she knew Camellia, she wouldn't. My sister might be only 10, but she didn't just get Bryony's thick black hair, she got his temper to go with it. When Bryony gets mad, he's blind fool mad, old Zeed calls it. Blind fool mad is the kind that'll get you killed on the river. Zeed's warned my daddy of that more than once when our boats have been tied near each other, and a lot of times they are. Zeed's been Bryony's friend since Bryony first took to the river. He taught Bryony the way of things. "You lil saucy thing," sass mouth. A big dark hand clamps over Camelia's arm, and the woman yanks her up, and Camellia clings onto the rail so hard, I think her shoulder bone's bound to snap from the socket. 2 seconds don't pass before Camellia whips around and sinks in her teeth. The woman howls and stumbles back, rocking the boat. Queenie screams, thunder rumbles far off, lightning flashes, and the night turns to day, then puts on its black veil. Again. Where's Bryony? Why is he taking so long? A bad thought hits me. What if the skiff broke loose and Bryony can't find it? What if he's gone to borrow one off somebody in the shantyboat camp? Just for once, I wish Bryony wasn't so stuck on keeping to himself. He never ties up in the river camps, and folks who know our boat know not to come calling unless they're invited. Bryony says there's good folks on the river and folks you can't trust, and it's best to figure out who's who from a distance. Queenie kicks and knocks Gabion over, and he bangs his arm and howls high and long. Lark bolts inside the cabin to hide now that the midwife is clear of it. Queenie's dying right here in my arms. She's gotta be. At the head of the gangplank, Camellia ain't budging. The sneer on her face dog dares the woman to try her again. Camellia would just as soon fight something as look at it. She'll catch snakes bare-handed and scrap with the boys in the river towns and not think twice about it. "You leave my mama's hat," she yells over Gabion, squalling. "And you don't need no fish, neither. Just get off our boat 'fore we go on and find the P.O. lice and tell them some colored woman done try to kill our mama and steal us blind. They'll hang you up a tree, they will." She lets her head go slack and lolls her tongue, and my stomach turns heavy. Just 2 weeks ago Wednesday, we saw the man hung in the tree downriver. Big colored fella in overalls. There wasn't a house round for miles, and he'd been there long. Enough the buzzards had got after him. Only Camellia would use something like that to try to get her way. It makes me sick just thinking about it. Maybe that's why Queenie's in a bad way now. A voice whispers in my head. Maybe it's all because Bryony didn't stop and cut that man down and find his people so's they could bury him proper. Maybe it's him looking on from the woods now. Queenie begged Bryony to go up to the shore and take care of the body, but Bryony wouldn't. "We got the kids to think about, Queen," he said. "No tellin' who did that to him or who's watching. We best get on down the river. The midwife snatches Queenie's red hat from her basket, throws it down, and walks over it, her weight rocking the deck as she wobbles down the gangplank, then grabs the lantern she left on shore. The last thing she does is take the stringer with the 2 catfish. Then she wanders off, cussing us all the way. "And the devil can come get you too," Camellia echoes back at her, hanging over the porch rail. "That's what you get for thievin'." She stops short of repeating the woman's naughty words. Camelia's eaten enough soap to clean up the inside of a whale in her 10 years. She's practically been raised on it. It's a wonder bubbles don't pour out her ears. Someone's coming. "Hush up, Gabion," grabbing Gabby and slapping a hand over his mouth. She listens into the night. I hear the sound of a motor too. "Go look if it's briny," I tell Fern, and she hops up to do it, but Camellia shoves Gabby at her instead. "Keep him quiet." Camellia crosses the porch and leans over the waterside rail, and for the first time I hear relief in her voice. "Looks like he's got Zed." Comfort wraps me like a quilt. If anyone can make things all right, it's old Zed. I didn't even know he was here around Mud Island, but Bryony probably did. They always keep track of each other on the river one way or another. Last I'd heard, Zed was inland, seeing after a sister who had to move to a sanatorium because she had the consumption. "Zed's here," I whisper to Queenie, leaning close. She seems to hear, maybe settles a little. Zed will know what to do. He'll calm Bryony's wildness, push the clouds from my daddy's eyes, and get him to think. "Zed's here, Queenie. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine." I repeat it over and over until they're pitching the line to Camellia and climbing the gangplank. Bryony crosses the porch in 2 steps, falls to his knees beside Queenie, and scoops her up, bending his head low over hers. I feel her weight leave me, her warmth vanishing from my skin. The night dew closes in, and all of a sudden, I'm cold. I stand up and turn the lantern higher and wrap my arms tight around myself. Zed squats down close, looks Queenie in the eyes, unwraps the sheet a little, and there's blood everywhere. He lays a hand on her belly, where a watery red stain rises up her dress. "Ms. Foss?" His voice is steady and clear. "Ms. Foss? You hearin' me now?" She lets out what might be a yes, but the sound dies behind clenched teeth, and she buries her face in Bryony's chest. Zed's mouth turns grim inside his thick gray beard. His red-lined eyes hang loose in their sockets. His breath sucks in through wide, hairy nostrils, then pours out between tight lips. The smell of whiskey and tobacco hangs heavy, but it's a comfort. It's the one thing about this night that's like always. He locks eyes with Bryony and shakes his head a little. "Queenie girl, we're gonna get you off of the boat, you hear me? Gotta carry you on down to the hospital in the Jenny. Be a rough trip across water. You be a brassy gal for me now, you hear?" He helps Bryony lift her from the floor, and her screams tear the night like the women shredding funeral veils down in New Orleans. She goes limp in Bryony's arms before they can even get her in the boat. "Hold her now," Zed tells Bryony, and then he looks at me and points the crooked finger that was broke in the Spanish War. "You take the young'uns in the shanty house and you get 'em all to bed, sis. Stay inside. I'll hist on back 'ere 'fore mornin' if the storm holds off, but if it don't, the Lizzie May's tied up downwater just a bit. Your skiff's there. Got a boy on the Lizzie with me. He's a rough looker just now, tried hoboing the train, and the railroad bulls got after him. He won't hurt you none, though. Told him to row on up here come mornin', if'n he didn't hear elsewise from me." He cranks the Water Witch motor, and it rumbles to life, and I stare at the sludge churning in the lantern's glow. I don't want to see Queenie's eyes closed and her mouth hanging slack that way. Camellia casts off the line, and it lands neatly in the John boat's bow. Zeed points a finger Camelia's way. "You mind your sister, Lil Spitter. You don't do nothing without asking Rill first. You savvy?" Camelia's nose scrunches up so tight the freckles on her cheeks run together. "You savvy?" Zeed asks again. He knows which one of us is most likely to wander off and roust up trouble. "Melia," Bryony's clouds clear a minute. "Yes, sir," she agrees, but she ain't happy about it. Bryony turns to me then, but it's like he's begging me, not telling me. "You watch over the babies, Rill. Keep care of everybody till we get back, Queenie and me. We'll be good. I promise. I'll look after everybody. We won't go nowhere." Zeed turns the tiller handle and cranks up the throttle, and the water witch carries my mama away into the dark. All 5 of us hurry to the rail and stand there side by side, watching until the blackness swallows the Jenny whole. We listen while the hull slaps over Whitecaps, rising and falling, the kicker roaring and quieting and roaring again. Its voice gets a little farther away each time. Off in the distance, the tugs blow their foghorns. A boatswain's whistle sounds. A dog yaps. The night turns quiet. Fern wraps around my leg like a monkey, and Gabby wanders inside the cabin with Lark because she's his favorite. Finally, there's nothing more to do but go in the shanty and figure out how we're gonna eat. All we've got is the 1 corn pone cake and some pears Bryony traded for over in Wilson, Arkansas, where we stayed 3 months and went to school until it let out for summer. By then, Bryony had the itchy feet again. He was ready to take to the water. Any normal time, he'd never bring us to shore nearby a big city like Memphis, but Queenie'd been complaining of cramps since day before yesterday. Even though it was sooner than she figured it should be, after 5 babies, she knew we'd better tie up the boat and stay put. Inside the Arcadia now, everyone's whiny and worried and hot and cranky. Camellia complains because I've shut the door instead of just the screen, and it's sticky hot, even with the windows open. "Hush up," I hiss, and get the dinner ready, and we sit in a circle on the floor, all 5 of us, because it doesn't seem right to be at the table with 2 spots empty at the end. ING. Gabion's lip pooches out after his food is gone. He eats faster than a stray cat. I tear off a scrap of my corn pone slice and twirl it close to his mouth. "You gobbled yours up too quick." He opens up like a bird every time I get near, and finally I pop the bite in. He says, and rubs his tummy. Fern plays the game with him, and so does Lark. By the time it's all over, Gabby's gotten most of the food, except Camelia's because she eats all of hers. "I'll run the trot lines in the mornin'," she says, like that makes up for her. Selfish streak. "Zeed told us to stay put," I say. "When Zeed gets back, or the boy comes, then I'll do it." She can't run the trot line by herself, and she knows it. The skiff ain't, even here. Bryony wrote it down to Zeed's boat. It will be tomorrow. Tomorrow, Bryony'll be back. And Queenie with the babies. We look at each other then, just Camellia and me. I feel Lark and Fern watching us, but it's only us 2 that understand enough to share the worry. Camellia looks toward the door, and so do I. We both know that nobody's gonna walk through it tonight. We've never stayed before. There's always been Queenie, even when Bryony was gone hunting or hustling pool halls or gigging frogs. Gabion topples over onto Queenie's braided rug, his eyes closed, long sandy brown lashes touching his cheeks. I still need to get a diaper on him for overnight, but I'll do it after he's out cold, just like Queenie does. Now that Gabby's using the potty during the day, he gets mad if we come at him with a diaper. Outside, thunder booms and lightning flashes, and the sky starts to spit out mist. Did Zeed and Bryony make it across water with our mama? I wonder. Is she someplace where the doctors can fix her the way they did Camellia when her appendix went bad? Batten down the windows that are toward the river. No sense rain coming in, I tell Camellia, and she doesn't even argue. For the first time ever, she's lost. She's not sure what's best. The problem is I'm not either. Gabion's mouth falls open, and he starts to snore. That's one of the little kids, at least, who won't be raising a fuss tonight. Lark and Fern are another matter. Lark's big blue eyes fill up, and she whispers, "I want a Aunt Queenie." I'm scared. I want Queenie too, but I can't tell them that. Hush up now. You're 6 years old. You're not a baby. Close the windows before the wind starts blowing, and get your nightie on. We'll change the big bed and sleep there. All of us. Just like when Bryony's gone. My body's boneless and weary, but my mind is running crazy. It can't think a clear thought. It's just spinning up nonsense words, like the water witch turning the shallows, stirring leaves and twigs and bait grubs, and muck. It keeps on, so that I don't hear all the whining and complaining and sniggling and sniffing and Camellia egging it on by calling Fern a ninny, and Lark a baby and another dirty word she ain't even supposed to say. Last thing, once they're all in the big bed and I turn the lanterns down, I take the Tin Man's cross off the floor and hang him back on the wall where he belongs. Bryony hasn't got any use for him, but Queenie does, and tonight. He's the only one here to watch over us. Getting on my knees before I climb into bed, I whisper every word of Polish, I know. Chapter 5, Avery. I'll only be a little while, I tell Ian, Leslie's intern, as he parks under the nursing home portico. He stops halfway out the driver's side door. Oh, okay. I'll just sit here and take care of some email, I guess. He seems disappointed that no escort is needed. I feel his curious gaze following me as I exit the car and make my way through the lobby. The director is waiting in her office. Grandma Judy's bracelet lies on her desk. The dragonfly's gemstone eyes glitter as I slip the lost treasure back onto my wrist. We chat a bit about the day's event before the director apologizes for my trouble. We've had quite a time with Mrs. Crandall, she admits. Poor thing. For the most part, she doesn't speak to anyone. She just wanders the halls and the grounds until lock-up at night. Then she stays in her room, unless the volunteers are here to play the piano. She does seem to love music, but even at the sing-alongs, we can't persuade her to engage with the other residents. Grief and a change of location can often be more than the mind and body can handle. Immediately, I imagine someone saying the same thing about Grandma Judy. My heart aches for this poor woman, May. I hope she isn't upset. I'm sure she didn't take the bracelet on purpose. I would have let her keep it, except it's been in the family for so long. Oh goodness, no. It's best that she gives it back. One of the things residents sometimes have difficulty accepting is that many of their belongings haven't come here with them. They tend to see things around the facility and think someone has made off with their possessions. We return heisted goods quite often. Mrs. Crandall is still adjusting to leaving her house. She's confused and unsettled right now, but it's natural. I know that's a hard transition. My grandmother's estate on Lagniappe Street is still closed up with everything inside it. We haven't been ready to decide what should happen to a lifetime of mementos and countless family heirlooms. Eventually, the house will pass down to the next generation, as it always has. Hopefully, one of my sisters will move in, and most of the antiques can stay. Does Mrs. Crandall have family who come to visit? I purposely don't mention the story about the dead sister. I already feel guilty talking about this woman as if she's some sort of ... see ace ... study ... she's a person, like Grandma Judy. The director shakes her head, frowning. No one locally. Her son passed away years ago. She has grandchildren, but it's a remarried and blended family, and none of them live nearby, so it's complicated. They're doing their best, and to be honest, Mrs. Crandall hasn't been making it any easier. She was taken to a facility closer to her home to begin with, and she tried to run away. The family moved her here, thinking that a bit of distance might help. She has attempted to leave us 3 times in 2 weeks. Some amount of disorientation and difficulty isn't unusual for new residents. Hopefully she'll improve once she has adjusted a bit. I'd hate to see her transferred to the Alzheimer's unit, but... She clamps her lips over the sentence, apparently realizing that she's not supposed to be telling me all of this. I'm so sorry. I can't help feeling as if I've made a bad situation worse. Could I see her, just to tell her thank you for returning my bracelet? She didn't return it. Exactly. The nurse found her with IIT. I'd at least like to tell her I appreciate having it be back. Mostly, I'm just concerned that the director seems so clinical about all of this. What if I've stirred up trouble for May? The bracelet was one of my grandmother's favorites. I look down at the ornately fashioned golden dragonflies with their garnet eyes and multicolored spines. We don't restrict our residents' visitors here, but it might be better if you didn't. Mrs. Crandall most likely wouldn't speak with you anyway. We'll let her know the bracelet was returned and everything is fine. We end the conversation with a bit of pleasant chatter about the birthday party earlier, and then we part at her office door. On the way back to the entrance, I pass a hallway sign with names and room numbers neatly arranged in metal slots. May Crandall, 107. I turn the corner. Room 107 lies at the end of the hall. The door is open. The bed in the front half of the room is empty. The curtain in the middle has been drawn. I step in, whisper, "Hello, Mrs. Crandall?" The air smells stale and the lights are off, but I hear the raspy sound of someone breathing. Mrs. Crandall? Another step, and I can see feet protruding from the blankets on the other bed. The feet are shrunken and curled, as if they haven't borne weight in a long time. That must not be her. I study the area that is undoubtedly Mrs. Crandall's. It's small and bland and somewhat depressing, while Grandma Judy's new mini apartment is outfitted with a sofa, a chair, and a game table, and adorned with as many favorite photos as we could fit. This room looks as if its occupant has no intention of staying. Only one personal item sits on the bedside table, a photo frame with a faded, dusty velvet stand on the back. I know I shouldn't be nosy, but I can still see May looking up at me with her robin's egg blue eyes, seeming to need something. Desperately. What if she's tried to run away from this place because someone is mistreating her? As a federal prosecutor, you can't help being aware of horrible elder abuse cases. When federal crimes such as telemarketing fraud, identity theft, and the pilfering of Social Security checks are involved, the cases fall under our jurisdiction. There are too many instances where young people are just waiting to get their hands on the older folks' money. Mrs. Crandall may have perfectly wonderful grandkids, but it's hard to imagine why they would leave her alone here in this condition, instead of moving her to some place where one of them could monitor her care. I just want to be sure, I tell myself. There is inbred in me The Stafford sense of duty. It makes me feel responsible for the well-being of strangers, especially those who are helpless and marginalized. Charities are my mother's full-time unofficial second job. The ornate frame is turned toward the wall, unfortunately. It was molded from the sort of pearlescent ivory celluloid that would have matched ladies. Powder jars and brushes, combs and button hooks back in the 30s and 40s. Even leaning over, I can't see the photo. Finally, I just do it. I turn the frame. Sepia-toned and bleached white around the edges. The image is a snapshot of a young couple on the shore of a lake or pond. The man wears a battered fedora and holds a fishing pole. His face is difficult to make out. Dark eyes, dark hair. He's handsome, and the way he stands with one foot propped on a fallen log, his slim shoulders cocked back, speaks of confidence, defiance almost. It's as if he's challenging the photographer to capture him. The woman is pregnant. The wind catches her floral dress, outlining a stomach that seems too large to be carried on her long, thin legs. Her thick, blonde hair hangs in long spirals almost to her waist. The front of it is pulled up in a bedraggled bow, like a little girl's. That's the first thing that strikes me about her. She looks like a teenager dressed up for a role in a school play. The Grapes of Wrath, maybe. The second thing that strikes me is that she reminds me of my grandmother. I blink, lean closer, think of the photos we carefully hung in Grandma Judy's room not long ago. There's one in particular, an image from her high school graduation trip. She's sitting on a pier at Coney Island, smiling for the camera. I'm probably just imagining the resemblance. Judging by the clothing, this photo is too old to be of Grandma Judy. My always fashionable grandmother would never have been dressed that way, but right now all I can think as I peer through the glass is that could be her. I also see the resemblance to my niece Courtney, and of course to me. I whip out my cell phone and try to get its camera to focus in the dim light. The camera's crosshairs weave in and out. I snap a photo. It's blurry. I shift toward the bed, try again. For some reason, turning on the lamp feels like stepping over the line, and if I use the camera flash, it'll just glare off the glass. But I want a photo. Maybe my father can tell me if he recognizes these people. Maybe, once I get home and look again, I'll realize I'm overthinking the resemblance. The picture is old, and it's not that clear. It's rude to invade someone's space without being invited. I jerk upright before the camera snaps again, and the phone slips loose. It tumbles end over end, and I'm like a cartoon character moving in slow motion, grasping at air. May Crandall makes her way through the door while I retrieve my phone from under the bed. I'm so sorry. There is no good explanation for this. None. What are you up to exactly? When I turn, she draws away, surprised. Her chin turtles into her neck, then slowly pokes out again. You came back. Her visual sweep takes in the picture frame, telling me that she knows it's been moved. Are you one of them? Them? These people. A hand flits through the air, indicating the nursing home. Staff. She cranes closer. They've got me in prison here. I think of the story Leslie told me. The house. The dead sister's body. Maybe there's more than just grief and disorientation involved here. I really know nothing about this woman. I see you have my bracelet. She points at my wrist. The director's words come to mind. For the most part, she doesn't speak to anyone. She just wanders the halls and the grounds. But she's talking to me. I catch myself pulling the dragonfly bracelet close, holding a hand over it, pinning it against my chest. I'm sorry. The bracelet was mine. It must have slipped off when you held my wrist earlier. Today. The birthday? Party? She blinks at me as if she hasn't a clue what I'm talking about. Maybe she's forgotten the party already? Did you have one like it? I ask. A party? No, of course not. Her resentment boils just below the surface, potent and acidic. Maybe the nursing home director has underestimated this woman's problems. I've heard that dementia and Alzheimer's can manifest in paranoia and agitation. I've just never experienced that behavior. Grandma Judy is confused and sometimes frustrated with herself, but she's as sweet and kind-hearted as ever. Actually, I meant, did you have a bracelet like this? Why, yes, I did. Until they gave it to you. No, I was wearing it when I came here this morning. It was a gift from my grandmother. It was one of her favorites. Otherwise, I would have... I stopped before saying, otherwise, I would have let you keep it. It seems like it would be disrespectful, as if I'd be treating her like a child. She stares long at me. Suddenly, she seems completely lucid, acute even. Perhaps I could meet your grandmother, and we can iron this out. Does she live nearby? There's an abrupt change in the atmosphere of the room. I feel it, and it has nothing to do with the vent kicking on overhead. She wants something from me. I'm afraid that isn't possible. I wish it were, but it's not. In truth, I would never expose my sweet grandmother to this strange, bitter woman. The more she talks, the easier it is to imagine her holding up with her sister's body. Is she gone then? Suddenly she seems crestfallen, vulnerable. No, but she's had to move out of her house and into a care facility. Recently? About a month ago. Oh, what a shame. Is she happy there, at least? A beseeching, desperate look follows the words, and I'm hit with a penetrating sadness for May. What has her life been like? Where are the friends, the neighbors, the co-workers, the people who should be coming to see her now, out of duty if nothing else? Grandma Judy has at least one visitor per day sometimes, 2 or 3. I think she is. To tell you the truth, she was lonely in her home. Now that she's at the facility, she has people to talk to, and there are games days and parties she can attend. They do craft projects, and there's a library with plenty of books. No doubt, they offer some of those options here. Maybe I can gain a little mileage with May Crandall, encourage her to give her new life an honest try and stop battling the staff. The shift in our conversation is leading me to suspect that she's not as addled as she's been pretending to be. She smoothly ignores my implication and changes the subject. I believe I knew her, your grandmother. We shared bridge club, I think. She points the knuckle of a bent, craggy finger in my direction. You favor her quite a bit. People say so, yes. I have her hair, my sisters don't, but I do. And her eyes. Things turn intimate. She looks through me to the very marrow of my bones. What is happening here? I'll ask her about you when I see her, but she may not remember. She has good days and bad days. Don't we all, though? May's lips twitch upward, and I catch myself chuckling nervously. Shifting, I hit the bedside lamp with my elbow, then catch it, knocking the frame this time. I grab it before it can fall, hold it, and try to resist. Taking a closer look. They're always bumping that. The girl's here. I could put it over on the dresser. I want it close to me. Ooh, okay. I wish I could sneak a new phone photo. At this angle, there's no glare, and the face looks even more like my grandmother's. Could it be her? Maybe? Dressed up for a play? She was president of the drama club in prep school. I was wondering about this actually when you came in. Now that we're on friendlier terms, it seems permissible to ask. The woman in the picture reminds me of my grandmother, a little. My phone buzzes, still on silent from the town hall forum. I'm reminded that I've left Ian waiting in the car all this time. The message is from my mother, though. She wants me to call her. Same hair, May Crandall agrees blandly, but that's not so uncommon. No, I suppose not. She doesn't offer any more information. Reluctantly, I put the frame back on the nightstand. May watches my phone as it buzzes a second time, my mother's text message demanding acknowledgement. I know better than to leave it unanswered. It was lovely meeting you. I attempt to excuse myself. Do you have to go? I'm afraid I do, but I'll ask my grandmother if she recognizes your name. She moistens her lips, emits a small cluck as they part. You'll come back, and I'll share the story of the photo then. Pivoting with surprising agility and without using her cane, she starts toward the door, adding, "Perhaps." She's gone before I can answer. I grab a better shot of the picture, then hurry off. In the lobby, Ian is scrolling through emails on his cell phone. Apparently, he gave up on waiting in the car. Sorry that took so long, I say. Oh, hey, no problem at all. It gave me the chance to sort my inbox. The nursing home director walks by and frowns, probably wondering why I'm still here. If I weren't a Stafford, she'd undoubtedly stop and ask questions. As it is, she pointedly looks away and moves on. Even after 2 months back in South Carolina, it's still strange, getting the rock star treatment just because of my family name. In Maryland, I often knew people for months before they even realized my father was a senator. It was nice having the chance to prove myself as myself. Ian and I proceed to the car and were quickly bogged down in road construction traffic, so I use the time to call my mother. There will be no getting answers from her at home, with the DAR meeting being hosted there. After it's over, she'll be busy making sure every china plate and punch glass is back in its rightful place. That's Honeybee. She's an organizational whiz. She also never forgets a name. Do we know a May Crandall? I ask after she has requested that I happen by the DAR gathering so as to make an appearance, shake hands, and score a few points with all the right wives. Get the women, and you've got the vote, my father always says. Only foolish men underestimate their power. I don't think so, my mother muses. Crandall. May Crandall. She's around Grandma Judy's age. Maybe they played bridge together? Oh goodness, no. The women Grandma Judy played bridge with are friends. By friends, she means long-term acquaintances of the family with ties that are generations old for the most part. People of our social circle. Lois Hartstein, Dot Greeley, Minnie Clarkson. They're all people you already know. Okay, perhaps May Crandall really is just an addled old woman with a head full of jumbled memories that bear only a partial resemblance to reality. That doesn't explain the photo on the nightstand, though. Why? No real reason. I met her today at the nursing home. Well, how sweet. That was kind of you to chat with her. Those people get so very lonely. She probably just knows of us, Avery. Many people do. I cringe and hope Ian can't hear my mother's end of the conversation. It's embarrassing. The question of the photograph still nibbles at the corner of my brain. Who's going by to see Grandma Judy tonight? I was planning to, after the DAR meeting if it's not too late. Mom sighs. Your father won't be able to. Unfailingly, Honeybee holds down the family responsibilities when Dad's job prevents him from doing so. Why don't you stay home and rest after the meeting? I suggest. I'll go. But you're coming by the meeting first? Mom presses. Bitsy is back from her trip to Lake Tahoe. She's dying to see you. Suddenly, I have the horrible, desperate feeling a wild animal must experience when the door swings shut on a cage. No wonder my mother wants me to come by her DAR get-together. Bitsy is back in town. Given the party attendees, I can count on a multi-pronged interrogation about whether Elliot and I have set a wedding date, selected china and silver patterns, talked about a venue and season, indoor, outdoor, winter, spring. We're not in any rush. We're both really busy right now. We're just waiting to see what feels right isn't what Bitsy wants to hear. Once she and the DAR ladies have me cornered, they won't let me go until they've used every tool in their arsenal to get the answers they're after. I have a sinking feeling I might not be making it by Magnolia Manor this evening to ask Grandma Judy about the photo after all. Chapter 6. Rill.